All right, it's now time for our final talk of the day, at least on the technical track. This one will be brought to you by Andreas von Studnitz. Andreas is a co-founder and consultant at IntegerNet, and at the same time a seasoned Magento developer. He was a Magento master in 2019 and 2020 for his code contributions, speaking at and organizing events. His main areas of interest are backend development, consulting, and giving developer training. Please give a round of applause for Andreas.
So, hello everyone. It's good to be here. Just a very few words about me. I'm doing Magento like forever. I'm part of the Magento community. I like to travel around a lot, especially for events like this, and especially I like being in London for the great UK events. Today it's about event-driven technology, event-driven architecture, and well, it's a modern type of architecture. It's about connecting different systems, different software systems, different servers, and it's different from the traditional request-response scheme because you don't wait for a response. It's more asynchronous, so you send an event and you can rely on it being further processed, and we are calling that producers and receivers or consumers. And I'll go into details a little bit. It's just a little bit theory at the start, and then we'll go into the practice part. It's about Magento, of course. We are at a Magento conference. So Magento is usually only one of several parts working in an e-commerce system. There's an ERP, there's a CRM, there's a newsletter system, there are other types like logging, reporting, and so Magento is only one part, and we are covering here one direction, because if some other system wants to send some data to Magento, it's already covered by the REST API. It's already working nicely. You have everything on there. There's even an asynchronous part with REST API, and it's fine how it is. So the part we are covering here is sending out data from Magento to other systems. For example, the example I'm using here is mostly about changing a customer address, but it would work the same way if you would want to send data of a new order or a new newsletter recipient or change order state or whatever to any other systems. If you're a Magento developer, you could, of course, implement all that yourself. You could put in some code with an observer which does a CURL call to another system, but I wouldn't recommend that in most cases, because usually you're doing work which has already been done and you don't need to do it again. You usually want to have it configurable, because if you have 3 or 4 or 7 requests to one system, you don't want to repeat yourself. Code like this should be resilient, so it should handle errors on both sides, network errors, errors 500, whatever. So we should have some kind of retry of data and make sure it doesn't get lost at all, because if some order data isn't sent to the ERP, it will not be delivered to the customer. You will need some kind of reporting, so have a notification if something goes wrong, and of course it's also about performance. So for example, if you're sending an event, sending some data about a new order, you don't want to send it with the new order, so the customer has to wait for it, but you should do it asynchronously, so the customer gets his success screen a little bit faster and less often. For Magento, we have some options. Option number one, the official option for Adobe Commerce, is Adobe I/O. Personally, I haven't used it. There's a great video about that by Alexander Lizoun. And the biggest drawback about that is that it's only about Adobe Commerce, and you cannot use it with Magento Open Source or Mage-OS. So there is another option, and that other option is the async events module made by Mage-OS. If you don't know Mage-OS, it's a community-driven association which aims to improve the Magento software and make it future-proof. This module is an open source module, so you can use it freely without any cost. If you find some improvements or some bug, who knows, you can create a pull request or send in an issue, so you have all the advantages of open source. And biggest plus, you can use it on Magento open source, on Mage-OS, on Adobe Commerce, and whatever forks there may be of Magento in the future. And I'm focusing on this module in my presentation. So this is the GitHub page of the module. You see it doesn't have too many stars yet, but that's mostly because it has switched namespaces. Until about a year ago, it was under the Elegant namespaces, and it was kind of donated to the Mage-OS team. So it gets some more popularity, and that's also kind of my one of my goals here, to give it some more popularity because it's really great. And I'm not saying this because I have written it, because I have not. I have contributed a little bit to it, but mostly it's by some other guys. I'll give a shout out soon. How to install it? This is for the developers. It's just mostly one composer require command, and I recommend adding 2 additional modules to that, which I have contributed to. One is about some common events, and the other is about an improved admin UI. And I fully recommend installing those modules with it, because it makes life easier. Also, you need to start some queue consumers. You should use RabbitMQ for that. It works with MySQL queue as well, but it's not the default, and there are some additional steps which you need to follow if you want to use that. It's documented in the wiki. So what do you else have to do if you set up a simple workflow? My example, I'm using a low-code tool named N8N. There are others on here. There was a great presentation about low-code tools last year here at this event by Colin Tickle. If you want to know more about that, I recommend that. In this case, it's a workflow tool, and a very simple workflow with just an HTTP endpoint which you are building, which receives some data from Magento, from your Magento installation, and processes it. And we are doing nothing more than setting up that webhook, that HTTP endpoint, which we are using for testing. We get an URL of that, which we use in the next steps. And this is a full workflow for testing. The second step after that is that we are sending out a Slack message to our internal Slack, just to see that the data has been received and that it's being processed. Then we go to the Magento backend, or Mage-OS backend. There are some new menu points about synchronous events, and we are going to the subscribers part. And we add a new subscriber. And what we are doing here is we select an event, and there are some predefined events. In this example, we are using customer address updated, but there's also sales order created, newsletter subscriber created, customer deleted, order canceled, whatever. There are like 15 or 20 events, I think, and it's fully documented. The second field is equally important. This is the URL we just generated in the N8N tool. And that's pretty much, here we can choose the notifier, which is an HTTP call. The module also supports AWS integrations, message queue integrations, and what was it? Microsoft Azure integrations and Google Cloud integrations, but in this case we are using the simple HTTP, which works with most systems. And then we are testing it. In my case, it works. If you are doing it, I can promise more or less that it will work too soon. And what I want to tell you is how it works, because that's kind of important to understand if you're setting it up, and what the benefits of these modules are, because it's more or less it's a two-step process. And in the first step, we are only publishing the name of the event and the ID of the entity. And we are publishing it to the internal message queue, and everything else is done on the second step. So we only have the name of the event and the idea, and everything else comes then. And the second step is about, well, back to the first step, create a Magento observer. This is code which, for Magento developers, it's kind of natural. We have a Magento observer. In this case, it's customer address save after. We get the data object from the observer, and we publish the event idea. That's still the first part of the process. And customer address updated is the name of the event, and then we give the address ID, and that's everything we publish to the message queue. And the second part relies on having an entry in a new XML file named asyncevents.xml. And I hope you can see it down here. I know it's kind of difficult depending on where you're sitting. We have two examples here, and this one belongs to our example, customer address updated. That's the name of the event. And what we are giving is a service class. That's the class name of the repository or the class we are using to retrieve the object, the data object. So remember, we are giving an ID, and we are getting by ID a data object. And this data object is received and transformed to JSON and then sent via HTTP or one of the other methods. Yeah, time for a little shout out. If you're wondering why there are so many raccoons on these slides, this is our company's mascot, and the stuffed animal is somewhere there in the back. Ina is holding it up now. Just a side remark. And the main developer, of course, it's not about me, but that's about Gauri. It's an Australian developer and DevOps engineer, and I had the pleasure to meeting him at last year's Meet Magento Netherlands. Very nice guy, and he had a presentation there about his module, and I was allowed to take over slides from him, and I used this slide. So he's a very active contributor to Mage-OS, and yeah, this is his module. He's the main developer of that, and we are very happy to have this contribution. Some additional features about this module. It enables us to trace events. So if an event has been sent or couldn't be sent, we get all the information in the Magento admin area. We see, in this case, it failed 2 times because of an internal server error on the receiving end. And it succeeded the 3rd time. And in the other tab, the info tab, you also see all the data which has been sent. Then we are good with scalability. This is just a monitoring tool, some live example. And you see in this example, we have more 145,000 events in 24 hours. And you see, because it's asynchronous, you can scale it very well. For example, the main process, the main server is only responsible for sending the simple message to the message queue, and you can have another Magento system receiving the message queue and sending it to the external system. So it's quite scalable and very performant, and yeah, it has proven its stability, its scalability in real-life events. One of the biggest advantages is open source. As I said before, you can download it on GitHub, use it as you want, extend it, publish improvements, send suggestions, freely to be used with the MIT license. And as there's Mage-OS, a full association behind it, you can be pretty sure that also in a few years this module will still up to date and be working with the current Magento, Mage-OS, whatever distributions, and that's pretty nice. I'm giving you a few more resources. This QR code leads to a blog post which has just been published half an hour ago. It covers basically the same as I was just telling you, just with more text and more words. And I have linked all my sources in this blog post as well. Mostly it's a blog post by Gauri himself, which is posted on the Mage-OS blog, and it's fun to read and gives you a little bit more background and a different focus than that, and what I'm telling you. Then we have links to the base module, the admin UI module, and the common events module, which accompany that. And last but not least, again, the full URL of the blog post, but on the mobile device, it's much easier to use the QR code. Well, that's it. Thank you for listening, and I'll be around all day, all evening. You can catch me at the party if you want to discuss Magento stuff, Mage-OS stuff, hear more about Mage-OS, about Internet, our company, whatever. Just approach me, I'm open. Thank you.